All right, yesterday we learned about the specialness of Sukkah, why the holiday is called Sukkah, because it surrounds us and because it affects every aspect of our life. The Sukkah is like a house because it's the first commandment we do and it's constant the whole entire holiday, unlike the Lulav and Etrog. Okay, this is a bit deep idea. Goes like this. Regarding Simchat Beit HaShe'eva, it says, "Sha'avtam mayim b'sason." Oops, let me get the pointer. Okay. Regarding the Simchat Beit HaShe'eva, it says, "Sha'avtam mayim b'sason," from the Ma'ane Yeshua. You should draw water with joy from the well springs of salvation. This means that the water that was drawn for the the water pouring mitzvah on the altar, they took from a wellspring. Okay, what was this commandment? What was this commandment? Only on Sukkot, on the altar in the Holy Temple, there were two funnels. There were two holes on the top, on the rim that went around. There were two holes, and there were funnels that led into these holes. And one was used every day. It was a bigger hole. And that was poured wine. Every day there's a wine offering. It's called Nesachim. Wine was offered. And on Sukkot, every day of Sukkot was also poured water. Okay, where did they get this water from? They got it from a wellspring. A wellspring, water that came up from under the ground. Living water. It says, Mimayane Yeshua. According to the revealed aspect of the Torah, Nigla, in other words, legally, from the letter of the law, of the Torah, this doesn't make any sense. Why? Because according to the Rambam, that if you can't get water from this wellspring, Mei Shiluach, it's called, then you can take water from the kior. There was what's called a laver that was used before the Kohanim served in the morning. They would wash their hands from this laver, and what's called a big sort of looked like a bird bath or something. They would wash their hands and their feet. Because this laver, this big sort of tub that they took the water from, it was not a wellspring. Even more, just water from a mikveh are also kosher for the kior. So if so, it comes out that you don't need to take the water from a wellspring at all. Why does it say Ush'avtem mayim b'sason mimayane Yeshua? You take it from a wellspring, and they did take it from the wellspring. There was a whole ceremony that they did. It's called Simchat Beit HaShe'eva. There was the joy of the drawing of the water from the wellspring. I talked about this before, about the Sichot already, because of the Tzedukim. So if so, we have to say that the simple meaning is that there's really no difference between the water that was drawn from a wellspring or if it was drawn from another place. You go to a mikveh. The main thing is that they have to be happy. And by means of this, so then it says this will be the well springs of salvation. So if so, why did they really always take it from the wellspring? Why? They didn't have to. It would have been easier just to take it from this laver. It says there's two things about a wellspring. Now again, a wellspring, it's a spring of water that comes from the ground. So what's the difference between a spring water and regular water? Is a wellspring, the law is that if a person becomes impure, as in order to become pure, as he has to go to a mikveh. And a mikveh has to be a certain measure. But if you can find a wellspring, then as long as the water covers his body, that's enough. This is matayr even a little bit. Other water, you have to have a certain amount. How much water there has to be. But by the way of the waters from a wellspring, because they are joined with the source of water from the ground, then therefore it doesn't make any difference how much you have. As long as it covers over yourself or it covers over the vessel or whatever you have to. Here the only thing that's important is the quality, not the quantity. It will purify even a little bit of water as long as it covers over. So a wellspring, the waters that come from a wellspring, they don't have to have any measure. Even the smallest amount will suffice to make an impure thing pure. Another thing is that a wellspring water doesn't have to be gathered together. It's matarim bezochlin. It will make things pure even when the water is not in a vessel, when it's running on the ground. Other water has to be a certain place. A mikveh, for instance, if there's a little hole in the floor, it's no good. If the water is pouring out, even if the water that you're actually toveling in is all together, but if the water is pouring out, it's no good. Because other mikvahs, they have to be measured, and they have to be measured, and also they have to be in one place. That measurement has to be held in one place, which is not the case. A wellspring because it's joined to its source, so therefore it can even be moving. This, says the Rebbe, is a very deep message. One of the purposes of a Jew is to purify other Jews. One Jew has to help another Jew. In spiritual, this means like this. If a person wants to go with your own powers and with your own, say, plans, and not be connected to the source, you want to go and help other Jews. Good, it's a good thing to do. But you don't want to be connected to the Rebbe. You don't want to be connected to the Rebbe. There's other methods, there's other organizations, good. But you have to know, you have to have a few conditions if you really want to succeed in drawing Jews closer to God. First of all, you have to have a proper measurement. You have to have enough intellect and enough soul powers, namely enough that it covers the whole entire body. And this has to be measured and have the proper amount so that something that's outside of you could be covered by this proper measure. In other words, you have to be filled with Torah, you have to be filled with Chassidut, you have to be filled with experience. But if you don't have these conditions, then you can't purify somebody else. No matter what you do, is not going to help. Even more, the water itself can become impure if it's not the proper measure. The water can become impure. When, though, a person is attached to the source of the Torah, then even a little bit, and even if he's moving, you don't have to have any conditions. I remember Rabbi Mendel Futefes, I'll just give you a small example. Rabbi Mendel Futefes, he was in Siberia. And he told me that the people that were connected, even remotely, to the Rebbe, he said that they didn't fall down. They didn't fall. If they were connected, I mean, a person always has free will. A person can always go crazy. But in general, the people that were connected to the Rebbe, they did not fall down. They didn't become informers, and they didn't leave Judaism. They didn't. So, but the people that weren't, said there were rare examples. But generally speaking, that was the last thing on people's minds, was Judaism. And especially to encourage somebody else Judaism. There were people that could, but it was very rare. And the people that were connected to the Rebbe, even if they really didn't know much Torah at all, they were very simple people. But they could go and they would help others, and they would. If a person has his own powers, if he has enough powers or he doesn't have enough, if he's connected to the source, then even if he's moving, he's not really that stable. But if he's connected to the source, then even a little bit will suffice. Whatever he does can have success. And therefore, he can even be zochlim, he can even be moving, right? He's not such a stable person. He's connected to the Rebbe, but because he is connected with the source, is therefore he's going on wide shoulders. He's resting on wide shoulders. And not only would he won't become impure himself, but even more, he can make other people pure. And I know people, there were people that they were told that they have to be rabbis in big cities. And they knew how to read, they knew how to listen, but they weren't anywhere near, like Rabbi Moshe Feinstein or something. I mean, there's no comparison whatsoever in any way whatsoever, except that both of them could read Hebrew. But they weren't in this. And they were told to be rabbis of big cities, and they didn't want to do it. And the Rebbe told them to do it, that they should become rabbi. And they did, and they were successful. They were successful. Whenever there was a question, they would call up and they would ask, they would remember from the past times what was the law, right? There were less problems in the city. Whatever happened is the classes that they gave were attended by hundreds of people, and other people would give classes and they were 50 times more talented than them. And 20 people would come, 10 people would come, and theirs were attended by hundreds that would come. Why? Because a person that's connected to the source, if he is connected to the source, then it doesn't make any difference what his powers are, his individual powers. He is connected to the makor, to the source of the Torah. And that's the idea of what a Rebbe is. That's the idea of a Rebbe is. This whole idea was made novel by the Baal Shem Tov, but especially in Chabad, because Chabad made a very big point of spreading out Judaism. How can you spread out Judaism? Not everybody is so talented. All the people says you don't have to be that talented. You just have to be genuine, and you have to be connected. According to this, now we can also understand why in the Holy Temple that they drew water from the wellspring. The whole idea of drawing water in the service of a man, in our service spiritually, we don't have any temple, right? The whole idea of drawing this water and pouring the water This is Kabbalat Ol, what we call assuming responsibility for the whole world. I'm a Jew, I'm responsible for the world. To accept on yourself this responsibility to change the whole world. And now this doesn't make any sense. How can I accept on myself responsibility for the whole world? I mean, you know how many the weapons there are, and how many clever people there are, how many evil people there are, right? There's all these organizations. People say that there's the organization trying to take over the world, the secret societies, and they've got billions, millions of people that are all over the place. They're everywhere. I'm going to go against that. I'm going to fix up the world. The Rebbe says, yes. Not only that, you're the only one that can do it. That makes no sense. That's the idea of the water pouring. Water has no taste to it. Water has no taste. This is the difference between wine and water. Wine has a taste. The whole idea of wine spiritually is understanding and grasping. Wine, you feel it. Water is something which on its own, a person has no taste. It's got no color. That aspect of a man like water is not like an aspect of the wine. Wine is something that has a color to it, has a feeling. I'm a good speaker. I know, I have a lot of knowledge. I can impress others. That's wine. Water is he's simple. The person is simple. He's clear, transparent. He does everything with what's called Kabbalat Ol. He does everything just, I accept responsibility for the whole world. Who are you? I don't know. I'm a Jew. That doesn't make any sense. I know it makes no sense, but that's what I do because I'm a Jew. Who was the first Jew? Was Abraham. Abraham stood against the whole world. One person against the whole world. How can one person do a thing like that? It doesn't make any sense. He says that was Abraham. He does not make any calculations with himself and by him. It's just simple, right? This is what I have to do. He just connects himself with the source and he does whatever he has to do with, what do we call it? Determination, self-sacrifice above understanding. Of course, you have to have some preparation, but the little preparation that he does suffices to make a big change. When a person by himself draws this water from the source, then it's with happiness. Erhat abisa, when a person has a little bit of simple water, simple connection with the source, with the Rebbe, this is a thing which is, it could be that it doesn't get any pleasure from it. It's just a thing that he does because he knows this is his whole being, like a soldier. Nevertheless, this will be joy. This is what joy comes. Because the whole idea of joy, he's pouring this water on the altar for God. He's doing it for Hashem, which God commanded. When a person does things that God commands, then will be automatically the well springs of salvation. The waters will be joined to their source and they will be purified and they will purify others with even a little bit. And even when they're moving, then will be drawn down the true happiness, because true happiness comes by being connected to the Creator. Then there'll be a salvation in everything that you do. And it'll be in a way that's totally not according to your own abilities. Because what? He connects himself to the source. So true success above your abilities can come by being connected to the source of Torah and mitzvahs, and that's the whole idea of the Rebbe. The Rebbe is like the Kohen Gadol, like the high priest. The high priest would come in and says there was no happier days in Israel than Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. The high priest, one person, he would go into the Holy of Holies and come out. That one person would bring tremendous joy to all the Jewish people. We talked about that before, right? If you have one person from the Honduras that wins the boxing champion of the world, oh, everyone in the Honduras is proud and they're happy and they're jumping. He's our representative. Only one person did it, but he represents us. When one Kohen Gadol goes into the Holy of Holies and comes out, it makes everybody happy. Well, now there's no Holy Temple. So every one of us has to be the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, but you have to go into the Holy of Holies. And the Holy of Holies, that's the Rebbe. That's the Rebbe. That's the Kohen Gadol, the great priest in our generation. And that's what will bring true happiness. Okay, now I'll tell you a short story. Question is, rabbis, let's see, before